All right, so we're getting ready to bore one of our sprockets. Took a little while to get it running true. It's actually a pretty shady setup. You can see that, like, I'm just kind of on one of the teeth there. Like, that one's okay, but, you know, this is not clamped well. And it's really the best that you can do. What I really should do is make, like, a specific arbor for it or something, like, a piece of aluminum where I'd put a couple screws in to hold it, and then I can bore it from there. Um, it's like a $10 part. I don't think it's gonna like fly out on me or anything. Um, I'm just gonna go really light, kind of a slower speed. I only have two to do, so I'm gonna see if I can get away with this or not. We'll find out. I'll give it one cut here. Reminder that when you have the jaws sticking out past the thing, to always do one full revolution with your bit all the way in to make sure you're not gonna, hit anything. Uh,
I'm fine if like cuts slowly. It takes a while.
But it is what it is. I ain't fighting about it. A little bit to the side.
So that'll take a little while, but it'll work. Now, there is a before and after. I actually had to switch boring bars once because the big one wouldn't go through the little hole to begin with. And here is the final finish. Pretty decent. Maybe I should have left a little bit more of a lip on there. I'm almost wondering if I should have turned more of a chamfer on this so that I had room to
weld the two and have it sit perfectly flush. What I'm gonna do is for my clamping setup, I'll use something like this that goes over it with a piece of all thread going through, a bolt, I'll tighten it, and then I'll do like 3 tacks or 4 tacks on the back. And that way it'll be really sucked together and perfectly flush against the lid there. And then I'll go around and weld it on the front. All right, so we're starting to lay out frame width. I've set the tracks to 25.5 inches on the outside. I got the motors in there. You can see why I don't want to mount the sprocket right to this end plate. So being able to float the gear inside there somewhere will be beneficial. And so it looks like I'm going to have a 10.5 inch width. And I don't know how far back I'm going to go. I'm probably not going to carry it very far back because I can always weld on more metal. That's easier than cutting it off and redoing it. All right, just finished welding up the frame. Left a little bit of a thing at the end so I could get a bead in there. Used a corner clamp to get everything straight. This extra piece that you see here is to stop this jaw from floating up. I kind of tapped a couple holes in here to keep it down so that it didn't work your pieces up. I got the 2 gears done, and I welded those just on the back side. I didn't weld them on the front. I don't think I'm going to, because it'll have to sit flush wherever I move it, and there'll be spacers against it, so I think that'll be okay. All right, so now we start mounting pillow blocks. All right, so we got some more of the frame welded up. We got our motors, sitting there in place just to get an idea of the offsets of the spacing. So if we do it with the gear on the outside, we can see we just have a little bit of play there. Or on this side, we have a little bit more. And what that's starting to do is that's going to let us, we have the pillow blocks in there, and that's what the holes are for, how this is going to get mounted. So we're starting to lay out the keyway and how much of a thing we have to do. So we'll probably go from about here to there. We won't be able to make use of keyway in any other section. Um, and so, all right. All right, so we're getting ready to do our second keyway, and we just finished the first one. It's a 3/16 keyway, fits for the pulley, and came out just right to line it up. So I was exactly on center. I didn't really do it the right way. I did it you can see I just took like a very light skim cut on the top. So I found, within that much of a distance where the exact center was because it was the highest spot. And then I put the cutter over it and I lined it up and it just kind of did it by eye. And, it's fine. Not exactly the best way to do it, but it'll work. I also drilled a slight little hole with a drill bit. I just went in just a little bit because this is not a center cutting end mill and I don't go all the way to the end. So that'll let us go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm about lined up. I'm over my hole. I'll just do it so the cutting edge is just a little bit over the metal. And I'll feed down with the fine feed until I get a touch. You'll be able to hear it. Then I'll back it into the hole and then I'll go down. I need to go, the key weight is like 0.188. So I'm going down like 0.94. And that gives me enough clearance for the pulley. So I'll do that in maybe 2-3 passes, something like that. All right, we'll be back with the second keyway done. Just taking a nice slow cut, no rush. All right, so I have a rough layout now of all the pieces together for the drivetrain. Anyway, everything's just blocked up at the moment just to kind of see how things are going to fit in there because it's a little bit tight. So this bar here ended up sprung just a little bit with the welding. So I'll have to put a floor jack in there in the back and go pop it out just a little bit till it's square. These I left a little bit long. They're bumping the case when the chain gets tight. I left them long on purpose. You can see I have this much distance, fingers width. So I'm going to have to take that fingers width off. And that will just fit in there with a tight chain. These just fit inside. Just fit. Those will probably still come rotating up just a little bit, but not much. Because, I can't control exact alignments with blocks of wood right now. All right, for what it's worth, here's an alternative configuration. We put the frame underneath this time. And now we have plenty of room between the motors and the frame. But now we do not have very much clearance on the bottom where it's about 3/4 of an inch right here minus the bolt head. So about 1/2 inch. Now, technically this is going over concrete. And we're always going to be scraping it clean with the blower. In reverse could hit snowbanks. I don't know. Kind of want a little more clearance. What we could also do, because this is offset in the plates, we could actually take this entire configuration and flip it this way. All right, before I make a determination on how low or how high I want to set the frame and how much clearance I want to have, there was a couple other thoughts that I had. One, remember how this was sprung a little bit? So I just took and I cut in with a hacksaw and then I was able to bend it out. And now with everything clamped into place the way it should be, I'll take and put a piece of wood across the back with it, the proper spacing, clamp it down, and then I'll just weld this solid again and everything's fine. All right, so back to the height offset of the frame. I put the old one back together just enough to kind of mock it up. And it turns out that I have 3¼ inches of clearance back here. That's how the manufacturer did it. And I also need to know what my where this is going to sit, and this is at 13 inches. So that gives me my maximum that I can go up. That was one of the other things. And I checked that one, and that one has about 3¼ inches of clearance on it as well. So while there are benefits to having a very low slung frame, I think this is a nice layout, but I think I want more clearance than this. So before I start putting everything together, I'm going to start with the right clearance. That way I don't have to redo everything if I'm wrong. Also, So here are the mounts that originally went onto the motors. They sat about like so, and I think I'm going to reuse these because they're kind of convenient to me. I don't have to drill a bunch of holes. All the holes already have the proper spacing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it off about here. I'm going to take this pivot off. Maybe I can reuse that later if I cut it close enough, although there's a lot of weld down there. All right, so here's the configuration I'm going to go with. Basically, I flipped it that way so that the offset was here. Still got plenty of room there. But the frame on the bottom, I'll be able to put a skid plate down there, and it'll be able to, you know, nothing will get up inside the chain and stuff. And what else? So I did a couple measurements based on the current axle position. I have just enough distance from, if I keep the axle position steady, I have like 1/2 inch of clearance between the thrower part and this front thing. I can always move it out a little bit. And my height here, even at the very top of this post, the very top of this, I'm only at 11, and the platform will be at 13. So I have just enough clearance in that orientation. Everything's looking good. I'm still I'll take and flip the frame around. I still want, this used to be the front of the tracks, and I want to keep it that way because these actually come in a little bit more than in the back. And that way these rails will be able to pass right out the back without getting a rub here. So I think that this is the winner. All right, so a little bit annoying. We took the Sawzall there and we cut in. This one we went in once and then came in twice to get a better angle at the root of the weld. And then we did the same thing on the other side. And then we just took a chisel and we came in and whacked it a couple times, and it was enough. Right now we've already broken the weld on this side and rotated it up. It already closed the gap there. So now that this is wiggling, it'll just pop off real easy. About 8 minutes maybe, something like that. Annoying, but not too bad. All right, so 5 minutes apiece with the grinder brought all of those into shape, and a little bit of time with the Sawzall brought that end down. So now I have a perfect place to weld on both ends. All right, so we're getting ready. We're preparing this for welding. I have the two motors parallel and lined up straight across. I could get them just a little bit tighter, but I don't want to get too close. Those are some plastic plugs in there. Vibration might hit. I don't know. I'm not gonna, that's the limiting factor back there. So I have it clamped here to keep them so they're both in the same plane, you know, that way. And I got them clamped here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is, this is going to kind of be the caddy that gets welded to the frame of the other thing. So I'll probably do like 4 tacks on each one, just kind of light, just to get the orientation and keep everything aligned. Then I'll weld this side, do the same. Then I'll take the motors off and weld it solid, probably with another clamp in place, just in case, or stitch weld carefully. All right, so we'll be back. All right, so we have the caddy all welded up. We did a bar across here and a bar across the top. This is going to get a couple posts that go straight down to the frame. And this front one is going to get a bar that goes straight down and connects these two together. So our spacings all look pretty good. We've rested the lowest point on our motor, and sorry, well, how am I going to get you? All right, so this is the lowest point on the motor, and we're resting it on a piece of wood that's resting on the frame, so we know that it's not below the bottom surface. I should probably put just a little bit more of a shim on there, but basically that way if I put a skid plate on the bottom, I know that I'll be able to enclose all of this from the snow from the bottom. And I think everything else looks pretty good. We have just enough spacing on the two sides, and I cut the keyway that was in here so that it's just the width of this. It worked out almost perfect being halves, and I'll cut a couple spacers. So this is 17 millimeters, so I'll bore out some aluminum or something. I'll have just a little one in here, like a kind of a washer, and then I'll have a bushing here, and then I'll be able to cinch all that tight so it doesn't go anywhere. And we have plenty of adjustment room on our back one. So everything looks good. Once that gets welded, that will complete the drivetrain, and then we can start sticking the blower on the front. One other thing I forgot to mention is before I set the final adjustment and got the chains evened out, I marked the pillow blocks so I knew where the center of the pillow block, because those will have an oval in them, like a slot, and I marked where the center of the bolt was on the side. So before I tightened these down, I tightened everything so it was dead center, you know, so I'm in the middle of my adjustment this way. I'm tight in the middle so that way I can, you know, if the chain stretches or if I need to loosen it up a little bit, I have play in both directions. All right, guys, so the drivetrain is now complete. We took and welded in a piece down there, which still not a great view. There we go. A little bit better. I put that in an angle. I didn't mite or anything. I just left it a little bit short and, you know, tilted it. So that I take that all apart and finish up a little bit of welding. These pieces, basically what I did is this and this piece. I ended up not using this because this one was just a little bit thinner than those. Those were like a 1/16 of an inch thicker and they just felt better. So I went with 2 of those because it's kind of a high stress piece. And this one was completely missing a corner from a bad torch cut from, you know, years ago. So I filled that in with weld. And I'm putting these gussets in, and that'll stop it from rocking. I got 2 more gussets that I'll put in on the opposite side. So it'll be like that in there. All my alignments look good. I do have enough room to get the nuts off in here, but I probably don't have enough room to slide on spacers. And I probably don't have enough room to slide the gear off, which is fine because realistically, I don't need to do that to take the chain off. I'll just drop the motors and get them out of the way that way. So all the welding and all the alignments are now complete. I still have to take everything apart. I got to finish off some of the welding, like on the bottom and on the insides, and get those gussets in there solid. I also have to mount, see this hole here. These used to have, they were locked to the frame in a way. So I'm going to have to devise a way. I mean, I could just like literally weld it, but I don't want to do anything too solid. I'm still going to do some kind of bolt connection so I can take the tracks off. You know, it'd be dumb not to. I wouldn't want to have to take like all of this stuff off to get and leave the back plate. Just not worth it. So I'll do something to anchor that so that the frame doesn't tilt like this, pivoting on the shafts. And I guess also I have to grind or mill some flats for these set screws. I haven't done that yet, but now I probably can. Now that I'm got my final alignments, I'll trace these with a marker, so I know where they go and do that. So that was a lot fussier than I was thinking it'd be. Of course, maybe I'm just being extra fussy. I don't know, but I feel good about it. All my alignments are good, solid, and so I think this will be the end of part 2. And I think the rest of it's going to go pretty quick. We'll get the blower and the motor and all the electronics, but this was kind of the long haul part that complicated.